making one of my favorite recipes, orange chicken. It tastes delicious, takes a few hours to make, and is great for like an Asian themed dinner or, you know, anytime you want orange chicken really. Eventually for this recipe you're going to need orange zest. So I would start off just getting the zest off the orange, which is just grating the peel. Make sure you don't, get much more than the peel. You don't want to start getting the stringy orange grated. When you've got about a tablespoon, I'd recommend cutting your orange in half. And then, because you're going to need about a tablespoon of orange juice, so I would save half your orange and then squeeze the other half out. So I'm going to save half of it, use it for something else. And then I'm going to just squeeze the other half out. Try not to get any of the pulp in there. For this recipe you also need a 1/4 cup of lemon juice, which is a lot more than just a tablespoon. So you're probably going to have to squeeze the whole thing out. And I would use a measuring cup to make sure you get the 1/4 cup. Now to make the sauce for this orange chicken, you're going to need a good sized big Saute pan. So take the biggest Saute pan you have, put it on a burner. And you're going to add to this 1½ cups of water. Are 2 tablespoons of orange juice. 1, 2, or 3. It just depends on how much you want. There you go, it's nice and fresh. Our 1/4 cup of lemon juice. A 1/3 cup of rice vinegar, which smells bad because it's a vinegar, but I'm telling you, really makes delicious sauces. So get that rice vinegar in there. And you're going to need 2½ tablespoons of soy sauce. So there's 1. 2. And there's a 1/2. Now what you want to do is you want to set this over medium-high heat. Now we're going to start chopping some other stuff up as this heats up. Alright, you're going to need 1/2 teaspoon of fresh minced ginger root. If you've ever had sushi, you know what like pickled ginger looks like. And this is what it looks like, the root, naturally. It's kind of weird looking, but once you cut it open you'll see that it is in fact ginger on the inside. You smell it, it'll smell a lot like ginger too. I would also recommend peeling the skin off here. 1/2 teaspoon minced. You need more than you think because it's so fine. I'm just going to start chopping small amounts here. The rest of this you can save in a Ziploc bag and use again later, just like we did with the other orange half. Make sure you get the pieces of skin out of there. That's probably more than 1/2 teaspoon right there, but that's what you want it to look like. You also need a 1/2 teaspoon of minced garlic, and my girlfriend gave me this tip on cutting garlic that really helps. you put the blade on it like this, and you kind of smash it down. This helps you get the skin off, and it kind of brings out the juices and flavors. Oh. Okay, I need to do a better job than that. Don't be afraid to smash it. There you go. See? Now we got the garlic clove out from underneath. You only need half a teaspoon of this as well. And it's also minced. So, you know, that means go pretty tiny with it. Don't be afraid to keep cutting it for a while. There. That's good enough to me. That might be a little bit less, but the people I'm cooking for are not a big fan of garlic. So, try to get off as much as you can in there. There we go. You're also going to need 2 tablespoons of chopped green onions, which I have a lot of fun cutting and eating. Green onions, chopped means, you know, they can be thin, but you don't have to go super thin with them. So just kind of keep them narrow, but if you've ever had like Asian chicken, you usually see them, or there's some soups they're in. There we go. That's probably 2 tablespoons right there. Once our liquid is starting to boil, you gotta stir in your orange zest. So get your orange zest, just kind of stir that in there. And you're going to need to stir in a whole cup of packed brown sugar. But this is what's going to help give it its flavor. So be careful about how you put that in there. I honestly would just kind of scoop it out because you don't want to splash yourself with this stuff, especially at the temperature it's at. Now this cup of brown sugar is what's going to help give it its sweetness. A lot of sauces you have on chicken, the reason they're so sweet is because they've got a lot of sugar in them, which isn't super healthy, but it is really good. Now we can stir in our half a teaspoon of ginger, minced ginger. And our half a teaspoon of minced garlic. So get that in there, keep stirring lightly. Now you can stir in your chopped onions. Oop. Stir lightly. You don't want the sauce to burn you. You know, you don't want it to splash out of your saute pan. And then for some added flavor, you can get in some red pepper flakes in there. You know, you can do a teaspoon or just, you know, a light amount. There we go. Just gently stir this, and as soon as it gets to a boil, which it's almost at, you're going to want to take it off the heat and let it cool down for 10 or 15 minutes. And at that point, we can start cutting our chicken while it's cooling down. And you're just going to want to move it somewhere with no heat. Let it cool down for a few minutes. Make sure you turn off your burner. And now we can start cutting our chicken. Now for your chicken, you need 2 boneless breasts. And we're going to cut these into 1/2-inch pieces. So first I would just separate the breasts. Personally, I like my chicken to be lean too. So I'm not a big fan of a lot of the fat on it. So I usually like to take a lot of it off. But that, I mean, that's just me. Everyone kind of has their own opinion on that. Some people keep it. I mean, fat's where a lot of your flavor's at. But since this sauce is so sweet, really you can do without the fat in my opinion. Now take your resealable bag. In my case, I need 2 because they're so tiny. And I'm going to turn mine inside out. Kind of put a lot of your chicken pieces in there. See, I can do a little more than that. There you go. Keeps the outside of the bags clean. Oh, put a few more in that one. Okay, now don't use this cutting board anymore and don't use your knife anymore. Just put them in your sink to be washed. Now that your sauce is cooled down a bit, you're going to take a cup of it and pour it in your bags. So I'm going to need about half a cup for each bag. You don't have to be super exact. You know, but just definitely get enough to, you know, coat the chicken. Because, I mean, it's marinating. That's what it's doing for 2 hours in the fridge. So... make sure you store the chicken in a way that it will be covered in the sauce. And the rest of it, pour in like a Gladware container or something. Alright, now you're going to want to store these in your fridge for at least 2 hours. That way they soak up the flavor. Make sure you put them in a spot where they get, you know, the liquid gets over the chicken so that it really marinates good. And then just find a spot for the sauce to go in there. Okay, and in 2 hours we're going to continue cooking this. Alright, now that it's been about 2 hours, it's been a little over, I'm going to take the chicken out, coat it in some flour, cook it, set it aside, pour the sauce in the pan, add some cornstarch to it to thicken it up, re-add the chicken, and then simmer, and this great dish is done. So let's get out the chicken and toss it in some flour, salt, and pepper. And then you can get out the sauce too if you want. You can use a bag if you want to do this instead, but I'm just going to toss them in a bowl. So you need about a cup of flour, really not that much. You're not making that thick a coat for these. And then the recipe calls for 1/4 teaspoon salt and 1/4 teaspoon pepper. But I'm just going to add it, kind of dash it in there as much as you like. There we go. I'm using sea salt. I like sea salt a lot for this. Okay. Kind of toss that around in there. Now carefully pour the chicken into this. You can dump the chicken in the flour. Okay. Do the same thing with the other bag. Okay. It smells good. It smells really good. Now you can just kind of shake it back and forth, or I'm going to use a spoon to kind of stir them up, or you can just use your hands, or you know, whatever. Make sure you coat them good. Toss them for a while. You really want them to pick up the flour. Make sure they all get evenly floured. Now we can put them back in our saute pan and cook them for a little bit. Now for this part, make sure you have a large plate with a paper towel on it. That way it can drain some of the juices. And then a piece of foil to cover them and keep them warm while you're cooking the sauce and thickening it up. It says use some olive oil, and it says 3 tablespoons. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. There we go. That could have been more or less, but you know, about 3 tablespoons. And then it says to heat that over medium heat. Okay, now that this is starting to heat up a little, I'd prepare to put your chicken pieces on it. Basically, we're just going to cook it till they're brown on both sides, which can take anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes. I would just make sure you keep flipping them and all that good stuff. Start to hear them sizzle a little, which is, you know, that's good. You want them to be brown, so. Okay, at this point, they're all starting to get pretty brown. Oop. I lost one. Goodbye. So. A good way to check is, with chicken, you want it to have an internal temperature of 165. But since, you know, we're not cooking them all right now, if they're at like 130 or 140, I think that'd be more than good enough. So let's check one out and see where it's at. Okay, my thermometer is reading around 110. Maybe a little hotter. So that's good. I mean, if we get these around 120 and then simmer with the sauce later on, that's going to finish cooking them up. Okay, these look decent enough now. And we're going to finish cooking them later when we simmer them. So I'd put them on your paper towel so they can drain. I'd even remove this from heat for a second, because we're going to need to wipe it out slightly in a minute. So just gently wrap the foil over these. That'll just help keep them warm. Now that you've dumped this out a little, put it back on, and then pour your sauce on. What we need to do with this is turn up your heat to medium-high, and you're going to want to bring it to a boil. Okay, now that your sauce is boiling, what you need to do is you need to stir in cornstarch, which helps thicken things. It's a useful little fact to know. But my advice for cornstarch is, it really does help thicken it. So I would like to do it very lightly, even as I stir. Otherwise, it's going to form into clumps. And it's happened to me a lot. You don't want clumps of cornstarch in your stuff. And we need 3 tablespoons to thicken this whole thing up. And now just kind of, I'm just going to kind of, I'll use my hands. Just kind of grab your chicken, or, you know, you can use a spoon or whatever. So, throw it in there. I'm also doing a thing of rice off to the side, which makes a great side for a Asian chicken like this, or American Asian really. Okay, I'm getting near the end of my 5 minutes. Alright, check the temperature. Chicken needs to be 160. Some people like to go to 165. So take your good chicken, put it with some rice. You know, a drink, a healthy side, you've got yourself a great Asian meal, or American Asian meal. What's not to like?